Good afternoon, and thank you for those of you who are able to join us this afternoon to hear from RUA Life Sciences. They put out a trading update this morning detailing progress on the 4 divisions and in particular exciting news around the 510K submission. We are going to have a video played, which is roughly about 12 minutes long, and then we will move on to the presentation, which will take about half an hour. And then at the end, there will be ample opportunity for Q&A. So without further ado, I will hand over to Bill.
Thank you, Hannah. Thanks for organising this. I'd like to introduce Caroline Stretton, who's our Group Managing Director. And together with the rest of the team, we managed to pull together a little video that explains what the RUA Life Sciences group is all about, introduces some of the people, and demonstrates some of the equipment that we've been investing in to develop our products. So if you can start the video, Hannah, that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Bill Brown. I'm Chairman of RUA Life Sciences. I'm delighted of this opportunity to introduce you to the RUA business, but more importantly, the people involved in the business, the products we're developing, and the prospects for our future growth. Our strategy for growth is really quite simple. We're looking to exploit our world-class intellectual property, which falls within the world's leading family of long-term implantable polyurethanes, which is the Elastion family. And we're looking to achieve this through the various business units within the group. So RUA Biomaterials is licensing Elastion to other medical device companies. RUA Vascular is developing textile-based Elastion-enabled products, particularly the vascular grafts. RUA Structural Heart is developing a revolutionary and we think a market-disrupting Elastion-enabled tri-leaflet polymeric heart valve. RUA Medical Devices is becoming a centre of excellence for designing, developing and manufacturing Elastion-based medical devices, whilst continuing to serve and expand its current customer base. RUA is a small company operating in the global medical device industry, but we're punching well above our weight by being recognised by some of the majors in that industry. So how are we able to achieve that? It's simply down to the quality of the people that we've been able to attract to the RUA business. 3 years ago, we were able to attract onto the PLC board Europe's leading cardiovascular marketeer, an internationally recognised cardiothoracic surgeon, and an individual who, having run the department in the FDA that approved cardiovascular devices, went on to bring 6 heart valves from design phase through to regulatory approval. The talent pool is not just confined to the board that was brought together to pursue a strategy, but runs deep into the individuals within the business. And as such, I'm delighted to introduce you to Caroline Stretton, our Group Managing Director, and some of the senior members of her leadership team.
Thank you, Bill. I'm Caroline Stretton and joined the RUA Group in April 2020 when RUA Medical Devices was purchased by Aortec International. I was appointed to the RUA Life Sciences Board in 2021 as Chief Operating Officer and subsequently to Group Managing Director in September that year. I would like to welcome you to this virtual visit to the RUA Group, introduce you to our leadership team and also talk about our 4 business areas in more detail. We operate from 3 facilities in Ayrshire, which have a footprint of 30,000 square feet and potential for future expansion. Excellent road, rail and air transport infrastructure ensure we can accommodate all of our stakeholder needs. A recent multi-million-pound investment in state-of-the-art clean rooms and industry-leading equipment will enable future growth of the business. And of course, all of our manufacturing sites hold ISO 13485 Quality Management System certification and are registered with the United States Food and Drug Administration. The first of our 4 business areas in the spotlight is RUA Biomaterials, and our Group Research and Development Director, Matthew Litton, will explain why Elastion is so special.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm Matthew Litton and I lead RUA's R&D team. RUA Biomaterials owns the family of medical-grade polymers known as Elastion. Elastion is a copolymer of silicon and polyurethane. It is clinically proven in long-term human implants with well over 15 years of data demonstrating quite remarkable biostability. By creating a material that has the mechanical properties and processability of polyurethane whilst maintaining the biostability of silicons. Elastion ticks all the boxes an R&D engineer looks for in a long-term implantable polymer. It is biocompatible, biostable, non-thrombogenic, non-inflammatory, and highly resistant to calcification or other tissue adhesion. And of course, it is free from any animal-derived materials. Elastion is the enabling technology behind over 7 million life-sustaining devices. It has an FDA master file, and devices manufactured from Elastion are approved globally, thus demonstrating the material is safe and has all the characteristics necessary for a long-term implantable biomaterial. We have licensed both manufacturing and marketing rights to our partner Biomerics in Utah in the United States, and the rights to use the material to a number of other medical device companies. Both RUA and Biomerics are invested in the marketing of the Elastion polymer. As a disruptive, enabling technology which future-proofs devices, provides greater durability, and eliminates unknown biological factors such as viruses and cross-species contamination. We expect the demand for Elastion to grow as the material is adopted by more device companies.
The second of our 4 business areas is RUA Vascular, which has developed a range of Elastion-coated, textile-based implantable cardiovascular devices. Our initial route to market is via large bore polymer seal grafts, which combines the sealing properties of the Elastion polymer with an improved graft construction utilising RUA Medical's implantable textile expertise. RUA Vascular's new products are the most significant innovation in graft product design over the last 40 years and have the potential to be disruptive to the marketplace. By eliminating the use of animal byproducts such as collagen and gelatin, we are the first in the world to launch a non-biogenically sealed vascular graft. Substantial investment has been made in new clean rooms, coating technologies and equipment that will allow scale up in manufacturing to meet the anticipated demand for our graft products from the marketplace. I'll now hand over to Bill, who will introduce the third of our 4 business areas within the RUA group, RUA Structural Heart.
RUA Structural Heart is operating in the $8 billion heart valve replacement market. The current technology that sits within heart valves is either mechanical valves, which are made out of pyrolytic carbon. They will last a long time, but because of the damage that it does to the patient's blood cells means that the patient requires long-term, lifetime anticoagulation treatment. The other option is biological valves, which are made out of animal tissue. They don't require drug treatment, but because the body starts to recalcify those valves, they have a durability of only 12 to 15 years. RUA is addressing the limitations in current technology by developing a valve that should have the durability of the mechanical valves and without the need for long-term drug treatment. We have 2 valves in development programs just now. One is a 100% polymeric valve exploiting the properties of Elastion and a novel manufacturing method which should reduce the manufacturing costs. And the other combines RUA's textile expertise with the properties of Elastion. Both of these valves are currently being evaluated and tested and will run the programs in parallel until such time as we determine which one is most likely to achieve commercial success.
And finally, RUA Medical Devices, who are specialists in the contract design and manufacture of implantable medical textiles and components for medical devices. With no requirement for upfront capital investment by our clients, we leverage our state-of-the-art facilities and equipment to be more cost-effective than our clients' internal teams. We use our expertise and know-how to develop our clients' product ideas through design concepts into fully validated retail packaged devices for clinical use. RUA Medical's Chief Operating Officer, Ailey Callan, will explain why RUA Medical Devices has been key to the successful development of Elastomer-coated textile medical devices for RUA Vascular and RUA Structural Heart.
Thanks, Caroline. The technical capabilities and know-how of the RUA team, our facilities and our systems form the engine room of the RUA Group.
We have refined operations to deliver better savings and faster development cycles by adopting 6S Lean methodology. It is our personalised service, innovative design and development, track record in innovation, quality, safety and continuous improvement that ensures we are a trusted partner with world-leading medical device and biotech companies.
In addition to our scientific and technological advancement, the RUA Group are fully committed to team development and engagement. We are a living wage employer and are directly invested in the development and well-being of our employees to improve their quality of life. Through personal development plans, training and upskilling plans and apprenticeship programmes, we have created an award-winning business where innovation can flourish and our employees fulfil their capabilities. There shouldn't be a trade-off between addressing the environment and delivering measurable business results. We are achieving a more sustainable future by working in partnership with Zero Waste Scotland to promote sustainability initiatives and increase our environmental responsibility within the business. We are choosing renewable energy suppliers, supporting employee conversion to electric vehicles, and ensuring all travel between our sites is carbon neutral. Whether it is licensing Elastomer, manufacturing a device or component, or developing next generation medical devices, our RUA Life Sciences business is pursuing our vision.
Thanks, Caroline. I hope this virtual tour has been able to give you a feel for some of the great work that's been done within the group. We'll succeed in delivering our strategy by creating an environment where we can attract highly skilled individuals, highly skilled engineers to help develop and commercialise our products. I personally find it hard to believe that back in 2018, the business comprised some intellectual property and a plan to develop some new products. Now we've got approximately 40 people, not just having developed, but are commercialising those products, and we're also serving some international customers to the highest standard. The growth since then has been quite remarkable, and we've now been recognised in our industry for some of the great things that we're achieving. What has been achieved in the last few years has only really been the baby steps in our journey for growth. And looking forward, I'm hugely excited about the prospects for the RUA business.
I hope you all enjoyed the virtual tour of our facilities and the video introduction to each business within the RUA Life Sciences Group. I wanted to quickly recap on our 4 business units who are all focused on enabling medical devices with Elastomer. RUA Biomaterials licenses Elastomer to the medical device industry. RUA Medical Devices is the engine room of the group and the centre of excellence for the manufacture of Elastomer-based medical devices. RUA Vascular is the developer of innovative Elastomer-based graft and patch devices, the first of which is set for commercialisation next year. And finally, RUA Structural Heart, who's developing transformational Elastomer-based tri-leaflet heart valves. Next slide, please. We have a coherent and balanced portfolio of products in terms of both timing and risk, which will add the most value to the group. Our current revenue is realised via 2 income streams through RUA Biomaterials and RUA Medical Devices. Both are profitable and have additional overheads which are related to the growth of the group. The most significant route for profitability is through RUA Vascular, and we're currently at a pivotal point since we are on target to launch the world's first non-biogenically sealed vascular graft early next year. And the term non-biogenic means free of animal-derived tissue. Our second value driver is the development and de-risking of the Elastion tri-leaflet heart valve system by RUA Structural Heart to deliver value creation. And Bill and I will now take you through how we will deliver upon this strategy and drive the most value from the business. So let's review the first of our established businesses in more detail, RUA Biomaterials. Next slide, please. There's many reasons for why we are using Elastion as our enabling technology. It's a high-performance family of long-term implantable polymers which combine the excellent biological performance of silicons with outstanding mechanical and thermal processing properties of polyurethanes. It's a given that it's safe and biocompatible, but the key is its biostability, and it has been used successfully around the world in over 8 million life-sustaining implanted devices over the last 15 years. Our proprietary method of synthesizing Elastion is protected by both patents and trade secrets. The IP focuses on the silicon content of the polymer, where the higher the silicon content, the more biostable the polymer. And RUA's polymers can reach as high as 67% silicon content. Any risks from a regulatory perspective are low, since Elastion has a robust FDA material master file, and it's been used in millions of medical devices which have been approved globally. And it's readily processed using standard equipment and processing techniques as you would expect from any routine plastic or polymeric material. A key benefit of Elastion that is rapidly gaining momentum in our post-COVID world is that it is non-biogenic, so it does not carry any risk of cross-species contamination, which is driving regulators to reconsider the use of devices containing animal tissue. We have therefore centred our discussions with major players in the market on two key themes: this increasing risk of regulatory censure and the risk of future supply of animal-derived tissue such as collagen and gelatin, since there's only 2 countries in the world which have the capability to supply BSE-free tissue, which makes it very expensive and highly regulated. The world is changing. Both regulators and device manufacturers are recognising this, and we are therefore positioning Elastion to de-risk the future of all current animal-based medical devices. Next slide, please. RUA Biomaterials annual revenue in our last fiscal year was £507,000, up from £489,000 the previous year. It's a 90% plus gross margin business, with its only direct costs being patent renewal costs. There is a non-exclusive manufacturing license with Biomedics in the USA, who manufacture, market and ship Elastion polymers to medical device manufacturers worldwide. And we receive royalty income from the sales of Elastion by Biomedics, as well as IP licensing fees from other medical device manufacturers who use our polymer in a range of application and devices in the list shown on the slide. Our key strategy for RUA Biomaterials is therefore to work with Biomedics to drive royalty income from Elastion sales and capitalise upon the wide range of Elastion polymer compounds available to us. And Biomedics marketing campaigns have already started to gain traction. I'll now hand over to Bill to provide a trading update on RUA Biomaterials.
The RUA Biomaterials business is a very important part of RUA Life Sciences is it provides the enabling technology behind all of the new products that we're developing. And I think it's actually quite unusual within a technology-based business that our technology platform is a profit center in its own right. We're getting funds from our license fees from other companies, which is built upon the investment made historically in the business. So RUA Biomaterials, it's had a really good 2021 to date. Our royalty payments from Biomedics in US dollar terms is up 22% year on year. Other customers are also doing exceptionally well. We're seeing growth in their business. One customer that we have a royalty cap with achieved its annual maximum during the first quarter of the year. So as far as revenue recognition is concerned, we will have very much a second half weighted revenue recognition from those. So it's great to see that Biomedics are fully behind the Elaston product range. They're investing in increasing the production capacity and then increasing the marketing activities. And that's all been built upon the underlying IP that sits within the RUA Biomaterials business. And we've just recently added to that a IP portfolio by getting a new European patent granted on the manufacture of a subcomponent of our underlying polymer family.
Thank you, Bill. The second of our revenue generating businesses is RUA Medical Devices. They're a contract designer and manufacturer of medical devices with a specialty in long-term implantable textiles. As the engine room for group R&D and production, they are a centre of excellence for manufacture of Elaston-based medical devices. And they also manufacture products on a contract basis for third-party multinational medical technology companies. Revenues for the last fiscal year were in excess of £1 million, and it's a very healthy 75 to 80% gross margin business. Our key strategy for RUA Medical is investment in future growth. And by the end of this year, we will have a team of nearly 40 people. And it's imperative that they're engaged, motivated, and rewarded. We will shortly acquire a third facility based in Irvine, which will give us the space required to increase capacity and capabilities. And this will bring our capital spend on infrastructure and equipment within the last 18 months to around £2 million. We're also continuously improving our processes to reduce waste and increase efficiencies. And all of these will give us the systemic ability to transform our ambitious aspirations for a product portfolio into real results.
So just moving on, just to sort of recap, the 2021 to date has very much been a period of investment into the RUA Medical Device business. We've invested in equipment, new properties, and growing the team. And all this has been put in place to allow RUA Medical to meet the demands of both in-house production and the new product development programs that are underway. But we can't forget about our third-party customers. They remain key to the business. And it's pleasing to see that the main customer, we've seen a 33% growth year on year from that customer. We've had a look at the strategy of the RUA Medical business. Historically, it did undertake a number of small contracts. So to allow us to concentrate our R&D activities on high impact projects, the strategy with RUA Medical is now to focus on kind of higher impact long-term manufacturing contracts that will add at least another 10% to the revenue of the RUA Medical Device business. So that's very much to allow the focus on in-house R&D. There's been some great engineering work done within the company. We've benefited from that for our own products. But it's nice to see that we had external recognition from the Scottish Engineering Awards, where we received the President's Award for Excellence. There's a lovely picture of Caroline and David Richmond, who's now retired, receiving that award earlier this year. So moving on to RUA Vascular, which is very much short-term value driver of the group, and the initial product lines are on track for commercial launch during 2022. The commercial launch will follow on from the 510(k) approval, but firstly, we can look at what the key USPs and the drivers of clinical papers that say will result in what we term as the acceptance cascade of existing products being replaced by our devices in the marketplace. The key to all, and we unapologetically are focusing on this very much in this presentation, it's the elimination of animal-sourced raw material becoming a much bigger risk. Patients are starting to demand non-animal derived products. Regulators are paying much more attention to it, and the industry itself is recognizing the supply chain risks of having to deal with animal-based products. So we're going to have quite a change in the way that medical devices are looked at, and a kind of good analogy of it is the switch from fossil fueled cars to electric cars. Whether we like it or not, in 10 years' time, we're all going to be driving around in electric cars. Whether we like it or not, in 10 years' time, I think a lot of what's currently been made out of animal byproducts will move into a more Elastion type material. So I think we're really well positioned within that, and that's why we're focusing that area for the vascular business. The growth and the uptake of the product once it is launched will be driven by the key opinion leading surgeons and the clinical papers that they will undoubtedly look to be writing on the RUA grafts. From the animal trials that were undertaken as part of our 510(k) data pack, there's a number of key areas that I think we'll see benefits from with the RUA devices. We believe that there's a reduced inflammatory response in the device, likely to have reduced infection rates. In the event that a patient needs to be reoperated on, the lack of adhesion to the elastic material will make it easier for the patient, for the surgeon. The polymeric sealing of the graft has got effectively zero porosity in it, so there's reduced blood loss, which will result in reduced time that patients are on chest drains, which should get them out of the ICU units quicker. And for those surgeons who are not highly skilled and specialists in particular areas of the thoracic repair, the handling of our grafts, I think, make it easier not to mismatch the sizing of the graft and then reduce the potential for kinking in the future. So moving on, excuse me if I may. If there's any medics in the audience, apologies for a fairly amateurish and kind of layman's description of the aortic anatomy here, but just putting a slide up here to show the areas that our devices have been designed to repair. So our product range, the initial market launch, is targeted at the surgical repair of diseased thoracic aortas. So that's going from, if you view that as a question mark, at the tip of the question mark is the aortic valve, the aortic root, and the sinusotubular junction. In 10% of aortic heart valve replacement surgeries, the aortic root is replaced with a graft as well, possibly from a valve conduit, the process called the Bentel procedure. There's also valve sparing procedures when the ascending aorta is being replaced. That's either the David or the Yaku procedure. And what we've done is we've created a one-piece graft rather than the cut and shut of the competing technology that's in the market, that already has got the bulge of the Valsalva created in it, which will make life much easier for surgeons in reattaching the coronary buttons. The great benefit also of our device is that because it is coated and sealed in Elastion, there's no limitations on the sterilization process that is required for the graft. So any company offering animal tissue heart valves with a view to putting a bental procedure product together can use our graft with the wet sterilisation, and similarly with not having to deal with the limitations of keeping gelatin in the right humidity, it would make the manufacture of mechanical valve conduits much easier as well. Moving into the aortic arch and the descending aorta, we have a range of straight grafts, which size-wise from 18 mil in diameter, which I don't know if you can see it, but the smaller one up to 38 in diameter, going lengthwise from 15 to 30 centimeters. These products, they sell into hospitals in the US at between $400 and $3,000 US, depending on the complexity of the device. And again, you know, the key message in it is there's no biological material, so we completely limit the risk to the supply chain. Moving on to the 510K update, that's now underway. It's kind of the process is it goes through an initial document review process, and then the 90-day timeline starts ticking. That clock can stop for questions, but we have put together a very substantial pack for the 510K. The requirement for 510K is to prove that your product is substantially equivalent to legally marketed devices that are already in the market. And the 750 documents that have gone into the process are there to demonstrate that. But just to highlight the kind of three key areas that we need to focus on, and that I'm sure the FDA will be looking at. The first is biocompatibility, and you know, that's an area that the two components of our graft are polyester, which has been used in man in these types of grafts for over 40 years. And the elastone sealant, which has been in man for 15 years. So they're both tried and tested materials, you know, so the risk of biocompatibility in that should be very, very low. The other two are performance related. One is the performance on the bench testing. There are specific ISO standards that set out what needs to be done. It's ISO 7198, and we passed all of those tests with flying colours. One of the tests that we ran was looking at leakage when the graft is pressurised, and we ran it with both water and with horse blood. In the horse blood trial, where we were looking to gather any data on leakage in the graft at 120 millimeters of mercury, the operator that was running the equipment made a mistake and ran the graft at 1,000 millimeters of mercury. And it's quite you know, surprising really, and the quality of the graft, that even at 1,000 millimeters of mercury there was absolutely zero leakage from the device. Then other performance that we need to look at is in animals. The animal study went exceptionally well. It was very encouraging, certainly demonstrating the equivalence to the existing products in the market, and some indications that can actually suggest that the graft will be better, but that's got to be proven in the clinic. I said earlier that the FDA can stop the clock for questions. Will there be questions? Yes, undoubtedly, there always are. But we have spent a lot of time in both putting the pack together, anticipating what those questions will be, and hopefully having answers already drafted for some of those. Moving on to the recent meeting that was held in Barcelona, the European Association of Cardiothoracic Surgeons, which RUA attended in October of this year. Professor Bart Muris, who's a key product influencer, presented the details of our animal studies. And during his presentation, there's two quotes that you know, we didn't put in his mouth, but that's what he came out with, was that he said that there was an unmet need for a synthetic, clean and safe coating for vascular grafts. And he was also very you know, positive in the sense that he was saying that biogenic material will disappear. So again, the ongoing theme is, you know, partly driven by COVID and other things, is that biogenic material will go. We are perfectly positioned with the use of the elastone material. So as well as Bart's presentation, which went well, describing the animal study, there was various takeaways from other meetings that we had with a number of people at the conference. The first, which surprised me a little bit, was that a number of the direct competitors had already heard about RUA. They knew what we were doing, and certainly two of those are currently firefighting some issues with their own products. So I think we're quite nicely positioned there if our competitors are noticing already before we're on the market. We met with one of the key US opinion leading surgeons. He was aware of our graft, and he liked and trusts the distribution partner that we will be using to bring the grafts to market. And he certainly said that he would be, willing to try the graft on a patient once it's launched. So that's great news. There's certainly OEM interest. I'm very confident that once the key opinion leading surgeons have used the graft and surgical, that we'll get a great opportunity for switching some of the OEM majors to our product rather than the ones that they're currently using. We can back with, as well as the OEMs we've already been talking to, two additional industry contacts where we're under NDA and having discussions with them already. And looking into Europe, we met with a number of European distributors and the key surgeons in Europe with a view to putting together the plans for launching the product in Europe, which will undoubtedly require a clinical study. So we've certainly got a number of surgeons there and the centres already identified that can undertake those studies for us. Let's move on. So to summarise the last 6 months, the 510K is submitted and the clock is now ticking. Some great work's been done on the patch, and I think we reported earlier that we'd had delivery problems with some of the equipment. That's now been resolved. Prototypes have been produced. Just the other day, Jeff Berg, who's the surgeon that sits on the RUA Life Sciences board, came in to review what had been done and give feedback to the team on what the product was like. Now, Jeff was notorious in the industry. Any salesman in the cardiovascular area knew that Jeff was renowned for being incredibly hard to please. But Jeff is happy with the product, and the team have done a super job in getting something that meets his exacting standards. We have given advice that we've taken. There was a bit of a risk in running the graft 510K process alongside the patch process, because it's relying on the same data, but you could have different teams reviewing the same data, and then maybe having one lot compromise the process for the other. So we're going to run them in series. So once the 510K for the graft has been received, the patch will immediately follow into that. Our R&D team has been kept exceptionally busy. The area they're working on just now is the scale up and equipment to meet the production targets, and also validating the manufacturing process, which is a key requirement. Distribution has been sorted. We've agreed what we're doing. We're currently documenting with the agreed distribution partners, and I think we're in the right place at the right time as far as moving away from animal tissue. We've always talked that there will be a further pipeline of products behind the initial ones that we're working on, and we'll be starting an early feasibility study to examine the use of elastone type materials for peripheral arterial disease and critical limb ischemia in particular. That'll be work that'll be done in the early part of next year, which may lead to a further investment plan into developing those devices if we believe there's a good opportunity in it. That market for PAD and CLI is multiples of what we're dealing with in the large bore vascular graft area, and there's actually multiples of what we're looking at in the heart valve area as well. It's a huge market and a major opportunity. So moving on to RUA Structural Heart, which is a longer term product, but we're making some really good progress with it. At EACTS, there was a presentation from Professor Peter Ziller. Peter's the Christian Barnard Professor of Cardiothoracic Surgery at Cape Town, and his session was entitled "Polymeric Heart Valves Are the Future." We got as you can see there, with both Elastion and RUA got a mention in that in his presentation as to one of the potentials for the future, and it's great to see that polymeric valves are now being openly debated at the likes of the EACTS meeting. So if we can just go on to the next slide. So just kind of setting the scene as to where the valves and everything are positioned in the products that are in the market. The company Foldax is ahead of us. They've had first in man of a polymeric valve. The session that Peter Ziller held, out of all the sessions that we attended at EACTS, had the highest representation from the industry attending and watching it. There was a lot of interest being shown in what's happening and what the future of valves are. So the valve market is an $8 billion market, with surgical valves selling at between $3,000 and $6,000, transcatheter valves at around $30,000, and it's a 90% gross margin business. Just to kind of put some perspective on the valuation of companies at different stages in this, the last round that Foldax raised in June 2020, the private equity funders put £120 million, not dollars, a valuation on the company. So there's certainly, the industry was showing interest in polymeric valves, new leaflet technology, and the US funders are certainly putting quite attractive valuations on polymeric valves as well. So moving on to where RUA currently stands and where we are in the process. Any polymeric valve company will talk about the benefits that polymers can bring to heart valves, and it's the benefits of polymeric valves are dealing with the problems that are inherent in the current technology in the market. So biological valves, the minute that they are put into the patient, they actually start to fail. So the day they're implanted is the day that they start to fail. But they fail very slowly. They fail over a 12 to 15 year period, and it's what's termed as a slow failure mode. And that's accepted and is acceptable in the marketplace. The mechanical valves, they're very durable, but they require a drug treatment for the patient because of the damage that's done to the blood cells. They need to go on anticoagulation treatment. So the benefits we're going to all argue is that it gets rid of animal products. A good polymeric valve should be more durable because it shouldn't have that calcification issue the biological valves have got. Wouldn't require drug treatment as the mechanical valves have, and the cost or the reduced cost of manufacturing these valves, even although the valve industry is on a 90% gross margin, a polymeric valve can be manufactured for significantly less than competing technology, which opens up the 80% of the world population with valvular heart disease who are not currently being treated. So it's kind of a very ethical area to be pushing on, to help those patients out. Our status and where we are, we have got a fabulous design. The design that we've created has got exceptionally low levels of stresses on the leaflets, and that's been because if we use the same design that we used in the pericardium valves, a polymer will fail. It doesn't matter whether it's Elastion or anything else, it will fail because the ultimate tensile strength of the polymer is substantially less than the ultimate tensile strength of the pericardium material. So we've had to reduce the stresses to create the durability of the valve. The elastomer material itself performs exceptionally in long-term implants. So it's the ideal material for a heart valve. And the design that we've got, has been validated with the test equipment. So what has been shown in computational modelling has been confirmed out of the test work. But the biggest risk, and the reason that I think the industry have, the big companies in the industry have yet to move towards the polymeric valve, is the risk of catastrophic failure of a valve. So if there's manufacturing flaws or long-term flex fatigue, if there's catastrophic failure in the valve, the patient will die. And the industry itself remembers what happens with the Bjork-Shiley valve. Asking anyone just now to name the big heart valve companies, they'll talk about Edwards, Medtronic, Abbott, but not that long ago, Pfizer Hospital Products, through their subsidiary Bjork-Shiley, had an 80% market share in heart valves. They had over 500 million valves implanted, but just over 600 of 80,000 of one range had a failure. So it's not that much by number compared to what happens in the biological valves, but the failure was catastrophic and the patients died. Pfizer had a $500 million compensation payment to pay to their former patients, and Pfizer came out of medical devices in its entirety. So it's very much in my mind and the board's mind, and putting that into the mind of the R&D team, that what we make must be very, very safe and highly durable. So within the molding process that we've been working on for the polymeric valve, it's been working really hard to make sure that the potential for manufacturing flaws and a potential failure is eliminated as best as we possibly can. However, we're not just running a sort of one-trick pony on this, because we've created some really interesting IP from the work that we did on the grafts, and as such, we're running in parallel with the full 100% polymeric leaflet what we can either describe as a hybrid or a synthetic pericardium material, which is a combination of the textile work that's done within RUA Medical and the application of the elastomer material to it. So we've been able to replicate the 3D geometry of our heart valve design, which has got very, very low stresses in that textile hybrid material, but that textile hybrid material itself is in the region of 20 times stronger than the pure polymer. So I think we've got a really interesting, not just project, but portfolio within the heart valve area. So we can move back to Caroline on some of the great work that we're doing on the environmental issues.
Thanks, Bill. More and more of our current and potential investors and OEM partners are looking beyond just technological advancement. They're looking for progress on environmental, social, and government policies. So they want to evaluate the people behind the partnership and the level of engagement, as well as the business's approach to sustainable development. We've therefore aligned our business practices with the UN's 2030 Sustainable Development Goals to achieve a more sustainable future and also improve the lives and prospects of people in general. Included within our environmental targets is to achieve ISO 14001 Environmental Management System certification next year, which will improve our environmental performance, and will be taking very much advantage of the available grants to support us in this. And we're actually working right now with our affiliated membership bodies in supporting their efforts during COP26 in Glasgow. A recent customer satisfaction survey had an average satisfaction level of 95% and some really impressive comments about our great service levels and world-class quality documentation. And we've addressed gender bias and inequality by creating an inclusive workplace. And we've got a 42 to 58% female to male ratio within the business, with a 50-50 split within our leadership team. Our last employee satisfaction survey had a satisfaction level of 84%. So it demonstrated that employee perceptions were consistent and positive, and that employees were engaged, emotionally attached, and loyal to the company. And this is due in part to us receiving living wage accreditation in April this year, and all employees having personal development and upskilling plans in place, and having access to apprenticeship programs to ensure they fulfil their capabilities. And we continue to strengthen our leadership team with 2 new strategic hires of CFO and Director of Clinical and Regulatory Affairs. So it's imperative that we continue on this journey to build upon the great foundations that we've put in place.
Thanks, Caroline. So just before we conclude and move on to questions, just a quick summary of the biomaterials business going really nicely. Biomedics investing in capacity and growing it. We're getting new IP coming in. RUA Medical, we're putting a huge amount of investment in growing the plant, the property, the people. Main customer is growing, getting back to pre-COVID levels, but there's opportunities to supply them with other products. Another global medical device business will be kicking off in revenues in the second half of this year, and a focus on using the skills within the business to either do high value third-party work, and in parallel with that, using the skills to develop our own in-house products. RUA Vascular, we had the milestone of the 510K submitted, on track for commercial launch in the first quarter of next year. The EACT meeting was fabulous. I was run off my feet with John taking me around to meet pretty much every surgeon that was there, but really, really good feedback from that. The patch is going well, and the early feasibility study for the peripheral artery disease, we've got a small grant from Innovate UK to fund most of the initial costs of that. And then within RUA Structural Heart, we've got our in-house testing. You've seen the test equipment on the video earlier. Recognition in the industry and with surgeons that polymeric valves are the way forward, and we've got the dual strategy of having either 100% polymeric leaflet or the textile leaflet, which very much de-risks the potential for success of that project. So happy to open it up to questions. I'm sure there will be some, and hopefully we can answer them to your satisfaction. Hannah, do you want to lead on those?
Thank you to both of you, an extremely helpful overview. Yes, we have some questions. Let's start. From the FDA website, there is the explanation of what a 510K is. Because the graft submitted for approval is non-biogenic, is there a risk that it is too different to existing bioproducts on the market that it might not be considered an equivalent?
A good question.
It is a good question.
Can I, sorry, Bill.
Well, I was just going to say, John Ely, who used to run that department in the FDA, thinks we can argue equivalence. There are areas that they'll come back and question on, but using non-biogenic material for the sealant is not one of those. The animal trial certainly demonstrated that the healing process in the lumen or the inside of the graft was exactly the same as the competing technology.
And I think some people don't understand what the FDA means by substantial equivalence. It's either a product that has the same characteristics as a predicate device, or it has different characteristics than the predicate product. But the substantial equivalent report that Bill has alluded to demonstrates that the new product doesn't raise any different questions of public health. And as Bill says, we believe that our substantial equivalence report demonstrates that there's no any adverse safety, performance, or biological safety issues.
Very helpful, thank you. You mentioned there obviously potential for delay with questions from the FDA. Is there an upper limit to how much they can delay the process with these questions?
They can ask the questions when they submit a question. The stop clock, the clock stops, and it starts again when we give our response. So I guess in theory they could ask, 90 questions and send one in every day to prolong the process. But I don't think that's really in anyone's interest.
And there is a time limit on how long we have to reply to these questions. Off the top of my head, I think if we don't reply within 180 days, the clock starts again. We have to resubmit and start the process again. But certainly we have lots of data available to support any difficult questions coming from the FDA because of the good work that John Ely has done.
And safe to assume you'd be well incentivized to respond promptly. No, thank you. You mentioned the distributor for your vascular graft product when it's approved. Could you give some more detail on that relationship?
I'm not going to name them because we're not at the stage of going public on it yet. We have gone to people that are known to members of the RUA Life Sciences team who have had products distributed by these people in the past, and their area of business is very much in structural heart and the thoracic aorta. So the business area and the business focus is in, and the clinicians that they're dealing with are the type of people we want to be selling to. So they're not generalist distributors. The precise commercial terms need to be finally hammered out. That's part of the documentation process that we're working on. But it's a bit of a rule of thumb in the marketplace that a distributor will command about 100% gross margin on the products that they're putting into the market. It sounds like a lot, but they are bearing the credit risk, the stocking risk, the working capital risk on that product range. And salespeople, are not salespeople, particularly in the US, distributing medical devices, are certainly not cheap.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And our business model has all been based on that fundamental margin share with them.
What confidence is there that the extra capacity being set up for graft creation will be utilised, as there is no current buying agreement with distributors?
I think, if anything, I'm slightly more worried about whether we can manufacture enough. We know broadly what the capacity with the full range of equipment is, but it's actually some of the thinking that we're doing about the new building that we're taking on next door is to put a new clean room in that with a dedicated graft manufacturing process in it, so designed end to end to make the process easier. It's from the feedback that we've had, I don't think we're going to have a problem selling our devices because of the benefits they've got. The question mark, and if you were looking for a risk in it, is how quickly does the demand come through, that acceptance cascade that John McKenna was explaining to us all. So it's how quickly that comes through. If it comes through too quickly, I don't really want to have the issue of not being able to supply. So we need to marry the acceptance of the product and the take up of the product in the market with a capacity to manufacture.
Thank you. Your announcement also mentioned some new products for peripheral artery disease and critical limb ischemia. Could you give us a little more detail, and when will we hear more about these products?
Yeah, so the type of issues that we're dealing with the peripheral artery disease, critical limb ischemia, if anybody goes into the reception of a hospital, pretty much anyone in the world just now, there will be somebody sitting in a wheelchair that's had an amputation. With the prevalence of diabetes, people being overweight, whatever, that there's arterial disease is becoming a much bigger problem. There are devices that address peripheral arterial disease, so angioplasty, balloons, stenting, some form of grafts, but they are just sort of delaying the inevitable with a lot of these patients. There's currently nothing that works long term as a graft, redirecting the blood flow from a massively diseased artery. There's no guarantee in it. It is very early stage, but just some of the beliefs that we have about the elastomer material, it will work really well in the narrow bore vessels of the lower limb. So we're spending a little bit of our own money, some of the government's money, on exploring that early feasibility study. And if the results from that come out well, we'll be looking at putting an investment plan together to come up with a product that should have enormous commercial success if we get it right.
Okay, thanks. Will you have to get GPO contracts and hospital listings before picking up large volumes? And what do you anticipate the timeline might be?
So in the US, there are contracts, there are listings. There is part of every hospital's volume is allowed for. So it doesn't have to be under contract. It's allowed for new devices. So we're deliberately created a range that can compete for all of the contracts, but our distributors are the ones that need to bid for and compete in those contracts. But I think it's 10% of each hospital's usage is available for non-contracted products. If we had 10% of every hospital, it would be a hugely successful business. So there will be, going from that 10% to the 40, 50, 60% that I think we're capable of getting is all down to that acceptance cascade, and that acceptance cascade will be driven by the clinical papers that will undoubtedly be produced on our product. So it's not going to happen overnight, but we recognise that in the business model, we know about contracting, we know about the process that's got to go through. The distributors know about that process, and we've been working alongside them to make sure that we get enough sales to satisfy profitability, as well as making enough product to satisfy the demand from the market.
Okay, and then a follow on from that, will your distributor be likely to be a stocking or a non-stocking one?
They'll be stocking.
They will be stocking. Thank you. Right, moving on. Having clearly actively pursued sensible IP protection for the elastomer material and polymer valve, are you seeking the same for the vascular graft, and is there any concern from competitors in the field?
Yes and no. We will be pursuing IP for the vascular graft. I don't think there's any competing patents out there that would worry us. There was a patent filing on the general idea of an elastomer coated graft some 20 years ago, but it was dropped by the old Aortec. Our patent will be very much on the method of manufacture, because there's some incredible work that the R&D team did on that, and being able to get, it's a very, very thin coating of elastomer to seal the grafts without it penetrating into the internal surface of the graft.
Okay, thanks. The 120 million valuation on Foldax. How far do you think you are behind Foldax in terms of getting the heart valve to market? Perhaps next in man might be another indicator.
Well, I think Foldax got that valuation shortly after being in man, around about the time of getting into man. where are we on that process? We need to have an animal trial, and we need to have somewhere between 200 or 600 million cycles on durability rig undertaken. I would hope we'd have one of our valves in an animal sometime next year. So hope's not a promise, but hope we would have one. And you know, the durability should be underway as well. Whether we get to the stage of going into man ourselves, or whether we'd be licensing or selling the project to the kind of one of the major players in the marketplace, we've got to be prepared to take the project down the road. But you know, there's going to be somebody is going to say yes, polymeric valves are the future, and when one of the big boys decides to get into that, the others need to get involved as well.
Okay, thank you. Clearly, the company is very strong in the medical skills field. How strong are you in the commercial field to make these products profitable and to stand up to the cut and thrust of the US market?
That's a good one, isn't it? So commercially, we've got on board, you know, the leading cardiovascular marketeer, somebody who knows the market inside out. Johnny Lee spent his, you know, the latter part of his career in heart valve companies that were having their products distributed by other businesses. You know, we're engaged with some very big companies at the highest level. We're able to get traction and discussions. You know, how successful we will be. You know, I think we're very well placed. You know, we're building the team. You know, we're having a new CFOs coming on board shortly. You know, it's the commercial skills are not something that worry me, but you know, I think I'm quite good at that. I don't know, maybe ask Caroline. Do you think we've got enough in place?
I can see is from an operational point of view, we'll probably need to recruit this year to support John McKenna and John Neely in the field, and obviously Bill. But I agree, my background obviously is commercialisation of devices over the last 25 years as well. So I think there's definitely enough bandwidth and knowledge within the current team that we have. And of course, you know, we're using some fantastic distributors. Very well thought of by the surgeon at EACTS. So yeah, I don't foresee any major problems.
Good. Is there any update on the seminal paper feedback on the future direction of surgical graft implementation?
Not yet.
Implementation. Not yet. Okay, thank you. And last one for now, so if you do have any more, keep them coming. On the peripheral vascular limb surgery, the gold standard is a vein graft, longer patency than synthetics. Have you compared? How do you compare with vein grafts?
We don't know yet, because we need to undertake the trial. The vein graft is absolutely the gold standard. I suspect that the person that's asked that has got some knowledge and expertise in the area. The vein graft is the gold standard. Of the synthetic grafts, PTFE isn't that successful, but it is better than a polyester. The background to what is exciting us about the potential for this was some work that we did on the thrombogenicity of the elastone material, and it has been shown to be the least thrombogenic of any material tested. And if you wanted an analogy with the vein, that included the likes of the pericardium material that is used in the manufacture of heart valves. So, you know, we don't know if it will be as good as a gold standard. But we'll undertake trials to see how good it is.
Okay.
But it can be issues with actually harvesting the vein to replace the artery for people who have got. Okay.
That is, thank you. Given the differentiation of the product together with the timing and the move against biogenics, why do you think that private equity, big pharma why haven't they come in?
Well, big pharma hates devices. This is a medical device issue. It's something that, animal tissue has been used for quite a long time. And it's just now that people are saying, the heart valve market nearly got itself into serious trouble when BSE was rampaging around the world. And if it wasn't for New Zealand and Australia being free, there would have been a massive problem in being able to produce those. So why? I don't know. I mean, it's
plenty of opportunity ahead for them to do.
It's pretty obvious to me.
Exactly. It's such a paradigm shift, I suppose, that the big, pharma, etc., they're just very slow in the uptake. And it's only recently, I would say, in the last 12 months, that the animal tissue really has come to the forefront because of the risk of cross-species contamination, and all the big events and the surgical conferences are starting to talk about it. So it'll be interesting to see what the adoption rate will be over the next 12 months, and we're positioning ourselves to take advantage of that.
I'm sure that will focus the minds. Right, can you talk about the market size of the vascular graft market and what part of that you are aiming for?
The vascular graft market is huge. It's in billions of dollars, and I've looked at various reports, and none of the reports agree with each other. I think in the package or whatever we quoted, one of the lower ones was that 1.68 billion. The area that we are particularly looking at in the thoracic aortic repair market for surgical devices is in the, I think globally is probably about $200 million. So it's big, but it's not massive. But there are only really 2-3 players in that market. And we know that we've got a much better device than certainly the largest one in Europe. Heals better, seals better. We haven't got the supply issues that they've got. So it's not just on the biogenic material. It's not just the risk. It's not just the risk associated with the material, or rather the risk associated of the material. It's the risk to supply of the material. The supplier of gelatin in Europe for medical device purposes has shut down. That's going to have an issue with the company that's using gelatin. They've got to get a new form of gelatin approved. To do that at the same time as somebody is bringing technology up to date from, putting bits of animal, putting gelatin into the body. Just, you wouldn't start with that. It just doesn't make any sense. They've done that because that's all there was. So we're just doing, I think, the kind of sensible thing. And the market, I think we're lucky that the market is in the right place for us just now.
Okay, I think the next two questions we could take together, sort of around funding and meeting new investors. Obviously, today is one of those opportunities to communicate the story to new investors. But perhaps in terms of your funding for the near term, and how you're communicating to potential new institutions who might be interested.
Well, we appointed Senkos a year ago as a joint broker to the company. They ran a fundraise for us just over around about 12 months ago. I'm not going to go into any discussions as to what our future funding plans are, or whether we're going to the market, or whatever, because it's just not appropriate for this type of forum, and I would get a row, and I'd like to avoid getting a row. So I'll pass on that question if I may.
Very diplomatic. Good. Well, I think on that note, we have no more, and you've been very generous with your time today, and as have our listeners for sticking with us. So thank you to all of you for all your questions and your attendance. Thank you to you both for the presentation, and best of luck, and we look forward to updates as and when appropriate.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.